Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a little video in response to something that Frosty and Mark were talking about on their show. So hopefully they listen to this and let's get into it.
There's just so much noise, and the noise that's been created has made logic go out the window. And
it's crazy how much just a group of people who just go around blasting shit and
In my opinion, calling someone illogical or stupid just because they don't agree with you is a weak argument.
People right. So look at the other side of this, right? Look at the other people who are being brought forth as possible perpetrators, right? So let's go over them. You've got Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall. Okay, yes. So let's look at the evidence that they could possibly be involved in this crime. One of them has a connection to one of the victims. We're not sure about how strong of a connection it is, or how deep it goes.
We do know that Brad and Logan attended the girl's funeral.
Also, at said May 2nd, 2024 deposition, Brad Holder told a third different story concerning how many times he met the victim, Abigail Williams, 2 times, and that one of Brad Holder's meetings with Abby Williams took place at Patrick Westfall's house. That was a hard sentence to say, because sorry, what? One of Brad Holder's meetings with Abby Williams took place at Patrick Westfall's house. Okay then. About Elvis Fields. Elvis is the guy that said, if you find my spit on the girls and I can explain it away, am I still going to be in trouble? He also said he was there that day when the killings happened. He said all sorts of things. He said he was wearing a blue jacket at the time. Oof, my word, interesting. Okay.
Patrick Westfall also told us that he has a daughter the same age as the girls, who were in the same class as the girls, and also he mentioned something about Abby's mom from early on when Abby was a baby.
That they have a fascination with runes and like to make like stupid stick figures and shit like that, and weird Facebook posts, and they get off.
I'm gonna piss you off. So you don't like my hat? You think I'm the murderer because I'm wearing this hat, right? How about this hat? Does this hat trigger you? What kind of haircut do you have, Karen?
This one says, how many hookers does it take to change a light bulb in my basement? Obviously more than 4 because it's still dark down there. And this next one says, infantry. Travel to exotic lands, meet exotic people. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a commonality between those two, and it includes dead bodies. Then this one says, you have friends that will help you move your couch, and I have friends that will duct tape somebody to a chair and light their house on fire.
Off in portraying themselves as this controversial badass bad guy, right?
Yeah.
They've been scrutinized, they've changed their story, and they are part of a religion that is misunderstood and misinterpreted, and
their groups, belief structures, each kindred, each group that's out there that practice also true, they vary in different ways when it comes to rules and things they allow and don't allow during their ceremonies, and the kind of people that they have in membership, which way they lean more when it comes to also true. If they're, universalist, if they're folkish, Odinism is the prison side of also true. That's how I refer to it. Okay. Anyone that I've ever known refers to it that. We don't call it Odinism. That's your prison groups and the skinhead groups that practice Odinism.
How does Aryan, do you know if Aryan Brotherhood overlaps with Odinism?
Some of them are Christian, some of them, mess with also true Odinism, or however they want to refer to it. I'm sure there's some of them that do, yeah. Someone on here wanted to just completely argue that that's not ever physically possible because they hold the one and only book of what can and can't happen with also true, apparently.
They are being classified as white supremacists, right?
Let's see. How does your club view interracial relationships?
The Vinlanders, nobody in the Vinlander had any interracial ordeals. Just like there's tons of different kind of bears, but you don't see polar bears going out and being in relationships and breeding with black bears. You wouldn't be any kind of a probate or patch holder if that was the case. There's plenty of supporters that had mixed kids and other kids like that, but it's not as a patch holder, no.
Could you be a black person?
No. It was Europeans, man. That was it. There's plenty of all black clubs out there. There's plenty of groups that are all Mexican, Spanish clubs. This was one for the Europeans.
Yes.
And they're claiming that this was a crime carried out by white supremacists.
That doesn't make
So
sense.
you've got white supremacists who are murdering white children.
Kids. That makes no sense.
Who have some of the most, the names Williams and German are heavily, it seems like that they would be, not targeted, right?
Twisted notion of sacrifice. They might believe sacrificing someone from their own group shows ultimate dedication to their cause. They might target individuals they perceive as race traitors or those not adhering to their extremist ideology. It's crucial to emphasize that these are deeply disturbing, irrational, and morally reprehensible ideas.
So you've got these white supremacists who murdered these white children in a ritualistic sacrifice.
In broad daylight.
In broad daylight. And it's committed by multiple people. And they stage the scene, and they make these runes, right? But the runes are definitely up for interpretation. And if they were really going to make the runes, it just seems like that they would be a lot more deliberate and a lot more clear.
Yeah. Now, we know the runes existed. The alphabet runes existed at the same time as divination and lots and things like that. Obviously, you have the mentioning of the runes and the have-em-all and things like that. So we can kind of infer that the runes were used for divination, but the actual specific purposes of each rune is kind of lost to us. And this is something that has been, gathered by multiple individuals over the past few hundred years. As far as what the runes mean in signs, really, this is definitely up to you. It's true, even today, I saw a thurizaz, or what I interpreted as a thurizaz, in the form of a twig on the side of a lake. Now, I don't personally put much weight behind it. Some people do.
They were displayed as opposed to, a Rorschach test, right? Because I've seen some of these runes, and it seems like that if you wanted to make them, it would be fairly easy to grab the sticks that you wanted and lay it out like that, instead of, the sticks that are there that maybe, could be, possibly. It just seems like that if you were going to the extent of committing a double murder and a ritualistic sacrifice, that you would take a little bit more time letting it be known that
it was you guys. Yeah, it was your group.
That this was your work, right?
Yeah.
That you pay a little bit more attention on, displaying your runes, right? Because that's your big grab, right? So that's the theory. Then
I know there was ceremonies back in ancient times where, the nine sheep, 9 cows, 9 pigs, 9 humans. From what I understand, that did happen.
Random, they try to talk about human sacrifice in Norse paganism, and they talk a little bit about this. I think this is even referred to as an exhibit that they want to bring into the courtroom, a painting by Brad Holder. And it looks like those discs things you were referring to are down here. So apparently they're trying to tie this and the girl's possibly being strung up by some type of rope or something. And they're saying this might be what happened.
Yeah. First time I saw this, the first thing and the only thing that came into my mind was Odin hanging himself from the tree of the 9 realms. And so he could drink from one of the wells at the bottom that were, to get the power of the runes, to learn the magic of the runes. So it could be something they passed around to everybody else, kind of like hung himself, injured himself, gave up his eye, the drink of knowledge. That's what I thought this was. I didn't associate with anything. And, if that's a rune that Brad liked a lot, that's a rune that Brad liked a lot.
But that's not the angle that the F on that tree would be anyway. Let me pull that back up. So you said there's 2 different. You got the one with the angled downward and then angled upward.
Yes, sir. There's Anzus and Feiwu. There's 2 different ones. One is the letter F, and even low, it looks like an F. The other one looks like an F, but it's actually the letter A. So, at least as far as my knowledge serves me, so there's 2 different ones of those. I can't really see where the shit on that one. Oh, that's the downward. Is that not Anzus?
Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like.
Okay. So, I don't know why Brad drew that, what his thought process was behind it, but I wish I did. I wish I gave you more information on it, man. I really do.
when you break it down, you can't place these guys at the scene. There's no evidence linking them to the area.
It is so damn steep off the edge of that trail down to the water side. Like, it is ridiculous. Like, you can't find anywhere along that trail where you can just drop right down to the flat area, I guess, where the girls were found very easily at all. Like, it's treacherous. It's dangerous. It's a very, very steep drop down. they would have had to have been taken away from the trail and brought back in that direction, because you would not have got anybody up that hill. I don't care how strong, and it would take one seriously in shape bastard to make that kind of, physical feat, because that was just trying to step off the trail and get down the access points in that creek was horrible. You had to go further down the road past the little DCS building. And then there was a little spot you could pull off the country road and step around a guardrail, and there was a beaten path down to the creek. And that's where we would play in it, because you couldn't get to it any other way. Not off the Monon High Bridge Trail, at least that I remember.
There's nothing, And so
one guy has an alibi.
One guy has an alibi.
That we know.
When asked where he was on Monday, he said he was at work and got off sometime between 2 and 4, which is not a narrow window, but that he went to Anytime Fitness in Logansport after that. Holder also that gave them Westfall's number as if they were still friends, even though both of their story now is that they had a falling out before all this. We don't know what else Holder said because we don't have the full report, and because the video was deleted. Law enforcement showed up at Westfall's house the day after that, and according to the summary of that interview, he mostly talked about Asatru being a warrior religion with lots of gods like Odin and Thor. Westfall told them he knows the woods around the Monon Trail real well, but on that unusually warm and lovely day in question, he stayed at home and inside all day with his son. 10 days later, on March 1st, at 4:27 p.m., Tony Liggett dismissed the report from Holder's interview with no leads required. A Pulaski County Sheriff's deputy prepared a report that stated he followed up at Liberty Landfill in an attempt to verify the employment and the work schedule of Bradley Holder. Attempt to. 59 days later.
Well, at least one that we know of. I don't know
So
about
then you look into the other things that they've got going against them, and it's that the first 70 days worth of evidence of interviews and whatever were deleted and destroyed. So again, it's not something definitive. It's just something that it's a possibility, right? And one of these people seems to be very much cooperating with being under investigation by allowing their phone to be extracted, right? So that's Holder. And then you've got the other guy who's willing to go on a YouTube channel
and talk
not once, but I think this is his third time on there, and allowing himself to open up to questions from people who definitely think that he's involved in this. And do you really think that if this guy was involved in this, he would put himself in that kind of position?
Hell no. No way.
Good night, Marv.
Good night, Marv. And to know you're under scrutiny like that, and to go on somebody's channel not once but twice. But
let's follow this logic, since everybody else logic went out the window, but these guys have all the logic. Richard Allen went to law enforcement and allowed them to question him not once, not twice, 3 times, while somebody else has had 3 subpoenas that they have not complied with. So going to the media and cooperating, or going to law enforcement and cooperating, which means more?
The issue, like, you got to look at it compared to those two, or comparing this group of people to Allen. Allen went quiet. Allen didn't, after all the images came out, Allen never said anything else. He basically disappeared.
So if you want to look even like more into that, like when they announced in 2019 that they were looking for the driver of the car parked at the CPS building, why didn't he come forward then? Okay. Then if you want to look even further into things, why did he say that he was on his phone looking at a stock ticker, but it seems like that the phone evidence doesn't line up with that? So why did he lie about that?
I'm a little confused as why you're going by a statement over the actual evidence. I would say if the phone evidence doesn't show that, then maybe he wasn't there that day. Or do we even know what phone evidence they have? Is it a tower dump? Is it geofencing? Is it only people that have Google only have their location enabled? I don't really think we can say whether or not his phone was there or not, but if they did have his phone and it was there that day at that time, then that's another huge question for law enforcement of why you guys didn't figure out who this person was.
Phone evidence doesn't line up with the stock ticker, is what you're saying.
That's what it seems like is going to play out, right?
Yeah.
So like, why would he lie about that? And then you want to ask more questions like, who all did he tell that he was at the bridge that day?
It seems
like was he super open about it? Because you would think that a lot of people who were at the bridge that day let people know, right? And a lot of people have a pretty good idea about who was at the bridge that day, right? But you never once heard this guy's name, never. So it's like interesting to know if his daughter knew that he was at the bridge that day, if his family, if his wife, right? And then it'll be interesting to know if he continued to go to the bridge after the crime was committed, or how frequently he went to the bridge before the crime. And if there was a pattern and then all of a sudden it stopped, then I think another thing that's going to be super interesting is how closely that he followed the case, like his internet searches and things like that.
You think he did?
I do. And so like if you add in that stuff, like say that he went to the bridge a whole lot before and then stopped going after, and then he's got hundreds of Google searches about the crime and like news and closely following it. So add that into everything else that we've talked about. Do you still think that it's not a solid case?
Add what in? We don't know any of that. So what are you adding in there? You can't add that in. We don't know that. So let's keep that out, okay?
I think it's incredibly solid. So do you think he was on YouTube? Like, do you think he watched people on YouTube?
I do. I don't think that he had any kind of like social media presence in terms of like his own Facebook or anything like that. I don't think that you remember that post that people shared where Kathy was like, hey, my brother John's Facebook was hacked. We know that there was some like really like gross shit that was shared or started by whoever hacked it, right? I don't think that was him. I don't. I don't think that he had any kind of social media presence like that Rick Allen Hill thing that you see.
That's not him.
I don't think so. But one thing that I had heard was that he had called into a podcast.
Really?
I had heard that he had.
I want to hear this podcast. I would love to hear what his voice sounds like.
He called into a podcast once, so I definitely think that he followed the case pretty closely. And wow. I think that there were some indicators of that somehow that police and law enforcement knew that this person followed the case, and whether that be kind of like some indirect evidence of that, maybe like some kind of like a taunting communication or message or something like that, or maybe just because like that they had a profile on the killer, and one of the things was that this person is going to follow and be interested in the investigation. And I think that's one of the reasons why the statement "you want to know what we know and one day you will" is made. Because
they were tracking his phone activity?
No, I think that like if I'm going to go with my thought, I think that there was some kind of behavioral analysis, and the profile indicated that this person probably followed the case pretty closely and would want to know the direction and the evidence of the investigation.
So this is, you think, before they
almost to a point where it was like obsessive.
So you think before?
I'd really like to see his Odin report. I'd like to know what was in it, so I have an idea of just how twisted up this dude was taking everything. Because if he's just being a parrot and he's just click paste parroting shit from the Odin report straight over into the memorandum, there's not a whole lot that I can do. I have found that out so far. But if he's just flat out just twisting everything into a big spiral, do what I can, but until that Odin report is able to be seen, I don't know. And that's what the libel attorney, he pretty much, the one attorney I did talk to, he pretty much sounded like he already made up his mind before he called me back. That he wasn't going to be interested in the shit because everything I said was will but this and but that. It's like, look, dude, you ain't interested in it. Just fucking say it. Get off the phone with me so I can move on to the next law firm. And
so what behavioral analysis do you think was done if this was done before that they knew it was Rick Allen?
Maybe it was done by the FBI, or maybe when the GBI came in and reviewed things in 2019.
This 85-page report detailed the investigative work performed by Click, Ferenczi, Murphy, and others, including the FBI. According to the summary of Click's investigation that he attached with his letter, the Behavioral Analyst Unit, BAU, of the FBI determined that the individual responsible for the homicides were involved in Nordic beliefs. Trooper Holman, who told the defense that he didn't remember if the FBI's BAU unit determined one way or another whether those with Nordic beliefs had been involved in the murders. And then if you notice, there's a little tiny 6, which is a notation to the bottom, where it says the defense will be providing all depositions identified throughout this document separately from the exhibits, and will identify the depositions with letters for purpose of the record. It also says, find attached the summary that Click attached with his letter, marked Exhibit 4, Odinists have Nordic beliefs.
You know, I think some kind of profile was created, and I think when Doug Carter was at the New Direction press conference, I think certain things were said that were meant only for the killer to pick up on what was being said, and behaviors and traits that they exhibited based on this profile that was created. So things like, you know, like, you want to know what we know, one day you will. I believe you have a little bit of a conscience left. Stuff like that.
So based off of the little, I mean, there was not very much. GBI did a peer review. We can elaborate on that in a second. So based off of,
they did a peer review of the investigation, and you know, maybe that they saw that there was no, you know, kind of behavioral profile, and maybe that they recommended it, and somebody was brought in to do that.
So how would you? I guess my question is, with as little information that was out there at the beginning, how would they form a behavioral profile? Like just like comparing it to previous offenders, or what?
From my very limited understanding of like how that works, I think that they start with the FBI's VICAT program, where they go over you know, other, they put in certain things that are elements of the crime, and I think that they do like a broad search for other crimes that contain the same elements, and then based on that they build a profile.
So like elements of a crime they plug in, and it kind of like,
right. So like, for instance, in this case, you know, you've got an attack in a you know, like a public park or, you know, trail setting in broad daylight. So then take into the account the time of year where it's typically, you know, colder outside. Then take into account the cause of death, the likely murder weapon, so things like that.
Enforcement conducted a second interview of Brad Holder sometime later, probably within a year or two of his first interview. Holder further testified at his deposition that A, law enforcement conducted the second interview. They're interviewing this guy multiple times. At the Logansport police station. The interview took about an hour and a half. The interview was likely videotaped in an interview room, and the interview involved much questioning about Patrick Westfall, who's the leader of this Odin group in the area. Can you believe all of this? Here they say Patrick Westfall was interviewed on August 17th of 2024, and law enforcement extracted data from Westfall's phone. The phone extractions show that Westfall's phone had no data prior to August 11th of 2023, which was the day that law enforcement contacted Westfall and asked him to come in to be interviewed a week later. Another key piece of evidence is also missing: the mimicked crime scene photo that was on Brad Holder's social media pages. Trooper Purdy viewed this mimicked crime scene image on Brad Holder's social media page sometime in the spring of 2017. This image was marked as Exhibit F in Purdy's depot and discussed on pages 79 to 81. This mimicked crime scene image found on Holder's social media page holds an eerie similarity to the actual crime scene, and we've looked at that before, right? In the mimicked crime scene image, the bodies of two women appear to be staged, lying on the ground in the woods with branches laid across their bodies. At the time that Trooper Purdy observed the mimicked crime scene photo on Brad Holder's social media page, the general public did not have knowledge of the appearance of the crime scene, the positioning of the bodies on the ground in the woods, or that branches and sticks were arranged on the bodies. That's very interesting as well. You know, so he's putting the picture out there before anyone really knows about that publicly. In April of 2017, April 12th, report from Trooper Ryan Winters, it was learned that the state police also came into possession of said mimicked crime scene image through an internet sleuth named Ryan Boucher. Boucher alerted Winters to the disconcerting images on Brad Holder's social media pages and then sent the images to Trooper Winters over the internet. On April 12th of 2017, Trooper Winters then shared with Jerry Holman his knowledge of the mimicked crime scene images found on Holder's social media pages and other information. Good sleuthing. Because of the similarities between the images that Boucher sent Trooper Winters from Brad Holder's social media and the crime scene, Trooper Winters requested that Brad Holder be re-interviewed. Wow. When deposed, Trooper Winters claimed that the state police could not access the images that Boucher found on Holder's social media, that Boucher then turned over to the state police.
It's very interesting that these two different police departments and detectives ended up with this information separately, and somehow that photo didn't end up making it into discovery. It's also interesting that when the photos were leaked, this is one of the photos that was not really shared or talked about.
I was going to say, Ellis Fields wasn't anyone that I would associate with or anybody that's around me as far as my memory serves, and I'm pretty sure it's serving pretty good on this one.
Did Brad Holder say he was some sort of a pagan priest?
Yeah, Gothi. When we started the Kindred, I was kind of more like the rule enforcer, making sure everybody was, staying within the lines of the rules and the guidelines we set with our kindred, because you set up boundaries, expectations and things like that with everybody.
Is that this here?
And Brad was going to do the Gothy. That. I don't know when the hell that was. Can you zoom that back a little bit, brother, so I can see that, man? I need to get it bigger so I can kind of see what's going on in this thing.
Oh, in the picture?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's holding some kind of, it looks like he's holding a book or something.
Those are American Guard people.
Is that, yeah, that's what that symbol is, right? I saw that on Google right now.
That's the guard patch, and that's not Brad Holder standing there at the back of his head bald like that. That ain't Brad Holder as far as I know.
Oh, so he just took the photo then. See, I just assumed that was him.
No, I don't think that's Brad at all.
Okay, so this might have been taken out of context then.
Am I even in that? I can't tell, but I don't ever remember being there for that, whatever that was. But a lot of the initiation time, when you actually become a member of, like, those, it's done at nighttime by torchlight. It's just part of the glitz and the glamour and the way the ceremonies would go for any kind of stuff like that. It was nighttime by firelight, torchlight, whatever.
Here's one from a strongly worded letter. Super chat, thank you. Did Messer ever make it into the Vinlanders? What role does...
So people need to just give up their trigger words and stop trying to name shit and throw shade on stuff. There ain't nothing wrong with Ossetru. All Europeans started off this way. Most of all of them. They didn't convert to Christianity until it slaughtered its way out of the Middle East into Europe. Say it loud, say it proud.
Here's a friend of the channel here. Don't Hate Create. She's also has her own channel. She's a YouTube creator. Would Brad have been upset to be kicked out of the Vinlanders and the Sunday group? Would he have set you up? Would that have pissed him off?
Like I said, he was never more than a supporter with the club, and it took away, I don't know if it took any part of him away from himself when he was told, don't come back around. Ain't nobody here going to associate with you. You're untrustworthy. You're a fucking liar. I'm sure getting sent on his way from the kindred probably, hit him in his little feel good somewhere. But he made the choice to go. I gave him the option. If somebody wants to leave, you let him leave. You don't fight him to be there. And he made his choice to go. So we let him. He was going to go be a wandering Gothi and bring together these kindreds and be this wandering wise man scenario that I don't think ever happened. He just kind of fell into his own little hole, and he stayed there and apparently dated some girl, married her. Don't know what happened to the man after that.
Here's a question for you. What's the status of him and the Vinlanders? Is he a member of the American Guard?
I ain't talked to no guard. Long time. He wasn't then, and as far as I know, he never was going to be. But he was only there because he rode with me. It wasn't people he knew. He wasn't into anything political. He was just into what I was into.
Trying to be part of the group you had going?
Just the things I did in my life to keep myself occupied at the time. He didn't have much else going on. He did live with his parents, was going through a divorce. Wasn't a big social bug. He, when he would first go up and meet people, it was awkward. It was almost painful to watch, breaking the ice and the way he would conduct himself and carry himself. And so he lived vicariously through me on a lot of stuff. At that point in time back then, I had a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 10-ish, and an 8 or 9-year-old. So I had kids right in that same age bracket, all the way across, 4 of them. So,
do you think that Brad Holder killed or had anything to do with killing Libby and Abby? He already answered that question.
Yeah, I know his boy was dating one of the girls, but I don't think they'd ever even met in person. From what I understood, it was just all online interaction, from what I understood. But I can't remember at this point where I even heard it.
Yeah, and that was
how
my
much
question.
validity it had.
I actually have. That's the only question I've written down. Is here. What did you know about Abby and Logan's relationship?
All online, teenage, small social skill type stuff. A lot of these kids can't talk. You can be best friends online. I've watched my kids do it. They'll talk with somebody through text, and they're within 5 feet of them, and just they can't interact. They can't socialize. They can't do any of that stuff anymore. It's almost sad to watch, but I think it was all online, talking and chatting.
Yeah, because Brad Holder would come visit you in Delphi. I wondered if maybe that's when Logan Holder, his son, was meeting up with Abby and Libby or something like that.
No, Logan would never venture away from my house and go anywhere. He stayed around with my boys in the backyard, or they would walk across the street to Canal Park, or the other way across the street to the canal itself. So he never ventured off into town and wandered by himself.
I guess that's the question.
There was a comment made about fanny packs on a video that you did with your buddy Frank day and a half after our phone call that we had.
Mm-hmm.
I never said a thing about fanny packs when I was talking about these leather bags. I'm not sure how it got into a fanny pack situation that he had mentioned, but these little bags didn't have like little drawstrings you could hook them to your belt, carry your stuff around. It was just a little drawstring pouch that you would, set in a dark place as you're supposed to do with your runes until you get them out and use them. And, you use them in low light areas, not super bright environments. It's just part of the whole rune thing. But no, we never made carrying pouches. And I've never been able to tell much about that picture of the bridge guy, what he has on him. I mean, jeans, jacket, and hat. It's hard to tell. He could have another hat tucked into his belt hanging down his pant leg for all I can tell. And that it could be a sock hat hanging out of his belt or something, I honestly don't know.
Yeah, to me, it looks
Not sure
like
if that's a merce or a fanny pack or what it is.
But that's why people freak out when you said, you can't say leather pouch around me.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's the same thing. Like if I said that I had 5 toes on my right foot, they'd be like, oh, the Delphi bridge guy probably had 5 toes on his right foot. I mean, yeah.
I don't know. He kind of walks funny. Maybe he's not. If you told me you had 4 toes, then I might.
He could be one of those 6-toe guys. I knew a few people that had that extra little weird thing stuck off the side of their foot, the 6-toe start. He could.
Okay, so this isn't a pouch full of runes.
He did. He stole it from a kid, and that's the only people that did him at my house was the children. All the adults had stone runes and stone engraved runes at that point because, we'd already had our first sets. My little rune set that we had at the start of all of our adventure, and